Mr. Speaker, I ask to address the House for 1 minute for the purpose of inquiring about next week's schedule.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you, Speaker, and I yield to the gentleman from Maryland, the Majority Leader, for the purpose of announcing next week's schedule.
I thank the gentleman from Virginia, the Republican whip, for yielding. On Monday, the House will meet at 12:30 p.m. for morning hour debate and 2 p.m. for legislative business, with votes postponed until 6:30 p.m. On Tuesday, the House will meet at 10:30 a.m. for morning hour debate and 12 p.m. for legislative business. On Wednesday and Thursday, the House will meet at 10 for legislative business, and on Friday, the House will meet at 9 a.m. We will consider several bills under suspension. The complete list of suspension bills will be announced by the close of business today. In addition, we'll consider the 2010 Department of Defense Appropriation Act, also H.R. 3269, the Corporate and Financial Institution Compensation Fairness Act of 2009, and H.R. 2749, the Food Safety Enhancement Act of 2009. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I did not hear the gentleman speak of the prospects of the House considering the health care bill, and I would ask the gentleman the status of that discussion and whether this House will be delivering on the Speaker's commitment that this House was going to vote on her health care bill, and I yield.
Thank the gentleman for yielding. The status of the health bill, as the gentleman I think probably knows, is it's still in the Energy and Commerce Committee. The Energy and Commerce Committee has not reported out that bill. I don't know the Speaker's commitment, but certainly the Speaker and I both had the hope that we would be able to pass the health care bill by the time we left here on the 31st of July. My view is at this point in time that may not be possible. However, that does not mean necessarily that we won't be here perhaps longer. I hope that's not the case, but if it proves to be necessary, we may be here a little longer, either on the Saturday or the 3rd or the 4th. I don't want anybody to be planning on that at this point in time, but currently the status of the bill is it's still in the Energy and Commerce Committee.
Thank you, gentleman. Mr. Speaker, I'd ask the gentleman again for some clarification. Did I just hear the gentleman say that we will not be considering the health care bill this week? And I yield.
I didn't say it in so many words, but I have indicated, and the Speaker's indicated, that we're going to do 48 hours notice as required, or at least as we would hope to do. This is a very important bill. It is a bill that great consequence to all Americans, and we're going to meet that those targets of notice. So in that context, in light of the fact the bill is still in the committee, it may be impossible to meet that commitment and get the bill on the floor on the 31st. As a result, my view is the probability of doing that bill by the 31st is very small.
I thank the gentleman. So to reiterate, I will say that I heard the gentleman say the probability of taking up the health care bill by the 31st is very small. And I suspect that is due to what we have read in the news reports of successive days now, for successive days, about the difficulty that your side is having in gaining a majority in support of the bill. And we have said all along, Mr. Speaker, there is a reason that there's a bipartisan majority against the health care bill being proposed by the Speaker, and that is because people are unsure about the direction a government health care plan would take them. And, Mr. Speaker, the gentleman knows we stand ready and willing to work together to try and effect reform for the American people. We on the Republican side of the aisle do not accept the status quo. We want to see a health care reform bill that works for the American people, maintains choice and quality, reduces costs so more folks can have access to coverage. And that's not the bill before us, at least that which is being reported. And so I'd ask the gentleman if there's a very little probability that this bill would come up prior to the 31st. And given that he and I have had some discussion about the schedule, how long will we be in session beyond the 31st. And I yield to the gentleman.
I thank the gentleman for yielding, and we think the bill that is pending, we're not sure that your premise is correct. As a matter of fact, we think your premise is probably not correct. We think the majority of people on this floor want to vote for a health care reform bill. We think a majority of people on this floor will vote for the bill that is currently pending as it becomes more perfected. So I'm not sure that, I'm not only not sure, I don't accept your premise that there aren't majority votes for the bill that is being considered in this House. Having said that, however, my point was that we want to give appropriate notice. If we can't give appropriate notice by the 31st of July, it is possible. I'm not saying that we're going to be doing this, but it is possible that we would move on to either Saturday the 1st or Monday and Tuesday the 3rd and 4th, if need be, and if that was appropriate. It may or may not be. I don't want to say at this point in time, but I do want to give members some notice that that is a possibility.
I thank the gentleman, and obviously, if the process had worked differently, if I would suggest to the gentleman, if we were allowed to try and push forward the kinds of proposals that we are attempting to do, and there was a receptivity on your side to allow for some of the, quote, free market principles and cost control suggestions that have been made, according to a member on your side, Mr. Minnick, back a few days ago, maybe we would be on a better course. In the same way, I think a colleague from the gentleman's state, Mr. Crowderville, said the bill is not even out of all the committees, and we're already talking about voting on this. We feel the same way, that there has been very little willingness to work together to try and get a health care plan right. And, Mr. Speaker, the way that I believe we get it right is to tell the people of this country exactly what would be in store for them by the insistence that there be a government plan involved in their health care. So I would tell the gentleman we obviously stand ready to work with him and the Speaker to perfect a plan that could get much larger than just probably the small majority that he'll be able to produce given the news reports that we're hearing. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask the gentleman about his anticipation of next week's appropriations bill, the DOD bill. And he and I, as the gentleman knows, have had a long-standing discussion on the rules. We, on this side of the aisle, have been extremely upset, as he knows, about the change in precedent of this House, that somehow it was okay for this Congress to leave the precedent of open rule, to insist that we not be able to hold open discussions on issues surrounding the constitutional obligation of this body to spend taxpayer funds. So I would ask, even after the good faith attempt that we have made to open up rules and have been rebuffed at each turn, is it his hope, is it his intention that perhaps on the DOD bill, whether we could see that happen? And I yield.
We're certainly going to have good faith on our side, as you've had all along. On the defense appropriation bill, it's my understanding there are well over 100 amendments that have been filed. Clearly, if we did that under an open rule or allowed all 100 amendments, which, by the way, are by one member, there are over 100 amendments by one member, we would never finish the bill if we stayed through August. Having said that, I've talked to the chairwoman, and it's my belief that Mr. Flake, who's filed over 100 amendments, will be given certainly ample opportunity to choose which amendments he wants to offer at the time that we consider the bill. I don't know the other amendments. Notice has been filed. I don't know that. Well, I don't know the other amendments and don't know what the Rules Committee is going to do. But I will tell the gentleman, as I'm sure he knows, the bill will come under a rule. We believe that your side of the aisle has had most of the amendments that have been offered clearly, and Mr. Flake and others, Mr. Hensling, were given the opportunity to offer a number of their amendments on earmarks, which I know of great concern to both sides of the aisle. So I say to the gentleman, we do expect to take the defense bill up under a rule similar to those under which we've operated, which have facilitated, by the way, as the gentleman knows, all 11 of the 12 appropriation bills having passed. While I was not sure what was going to happen on the health care bill, we will achieve our objective of passing all 12 appropriation bills in a timely fashion. I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. I think the gentleman, though, speaks to the point I'm trying to make, is we're trying to get things right here. And spending billions of dollars for a spending's sake is not the goal here, and I know he agrees with me on that, that we are trying to effect the most prudent expenditure of taxpayer dollars in these very difficult economic times. As the gentleman knows, we voted on a pay-go bill this week, and frankly, the spirit behind that pay-go bill was to attempt to restrain the type of spending that we've seen this Congress conduct. In fact, this week, in one of the reports, one of the authors of an opinion column said, frankly, we're spending the spending pay-go bill that was passed this week was full of loopholes. And again, we know that the pay-go bill that was passed was that. It wasn't a holistic pay-go bill. It wasn't something that, frankly, will do much to address the runaway spending. And so we still sit here, Mr. Speaker, and want to have an open process so we can contribute to holding back the runaway spending in this town. And so I would say to the gentleman, just as he has said to me, we ought to be looking to try and open up this process again. And we were not allowed to do so in the pay-go debate and address the number one concern of this government right now, which is the runaway spending. We have not been allowed to do so in any of the appropriations bills. And if we're going to be here through the weekend, as the gentleman may suggest, why is it we couldn't take that time to debate the DOD bill in an open and full, transparent manner? I yield.
As I said, I think we'll have a rule similar to the ones that we've considered the previous 11 bills under.
I didn't hear the gentleman, Mr. Speaker.
I said, as I said, I believe we would be considering the defense bill under rules similar to those which have led to the passage of the other 11 bills. I yield back.
Well, I would say to the gentleman, obviously, with much disappointment, and I think really reflecting the disappointment on the part of the American people, that we should be having a much more robust debate on these issues. Certainly, if we are going to be addressing the issue of health care, and the gentleman says that his side is insistent on rushing that to the floor, insisting on some political deadline, and I don't understand why it is we couldn't have an open debate on some of the other issues if we're going to be waiting around here until next Monday or Tuesday. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I thank the gentleman, and I yield back. Thanks.